Welcome back to Revealing the Hidden, where we take a deeper look at the Jewish living. So today, I'm just going to tell you a story. And it cuts right into the theme of Avas Yisrael, of loving other Jews, the power of Tefillah, and in particular, we're going to be looking at the context called being a shaliach tzibur, being a chazan. If you pay attention to the word shaliach tzibur, to be the representative of a community, that's really what it means, to represent a community. An unusual term, right? Because a shaliach tzibur can do a lot of things. I could send a shaliach for a community to, a delegation to the Senate, and he's speaking on our behalf. I could send a shaliach tzibur to go and be, a parnas, someone who's going to collect money and distribute. And when you think about that in terms of the idea of where we usually use it, which is, someone who's going to daven for the rest of the community, you can think about the tefillah hineni. Hineni is the tefillah that we say, Musaf, Rosh Hashanah, before the introduction to the Musaf for Rosh Hashanah or for Yom Kippur, and the chazan gets up, and it's a really beautiful, heartwarming prayer, sometimes long, depending on who the chazan is. But we have this whole list of different things that we use to describe him. There's me'orav mabrios, and that he's mixed amongst the other people. He's a zekana megudal, that he has a long beard. You almost think of a distinguished beard, and kolo na'im, and it doesn't mean beautiful voice, it means a pleasant voice. And if you think about it, like the description of this person, like if he's a delegate, he has to look like a mensch. That's a zekana megudal, which is unusual. Like you want him to have like a long beard, it feels like a really funny, weird description. Like who cares? Like, if he's a mensch. The idea of zekana megudal, right? That your beard is grown out, that we describe, it gives a regal picture. It describes someone who really can go, and we're not talking about the Senate, go in front of the king and represent you. Nowadays, you have presidents and kings without beards, but the notion is that he represents me. Me'ur avim abrios, connected to them. I want to tackle that through this story. I want to think about the idea, right? If you have a shaliach, he has to know the people. My uncle, alav shalom, his name is David Lennon. When I think about him, I think about someone who, I used to think, when Mashiach comes, they're going to look for a chazan, they're going to get my Uncle David. He wasn't a fancy superhero guy. He was a superhero, but it wasn't I'm choosing him because he is this opera singer who can hit all these crazy notes, or a Yaakov Shweki. He sang from his heart with beauty and kolo na'im. I could still hear in my head when he would sing the words of the kolo na'im itself. A pleasant voice, a sweet voice, one that you want to hear, that makes people enjoy it. And when he was chazan, I know the community well that he was in Skokie, and the love that they had for him when he would daven was very special. Even my friends, when we were growing up, were young. Usually you don't think about young kids thinking about how the chazan is, but they used to tell me how special he was. So here's the story. There was a time when he needed a kidney replacement, and essentially the doctors, did a test, and I think it was his white blood cell count was too high. And what that means was that if he was going to get a new kidney, the body was going to fight it so hard that it wouldn't allow him to be able to keep the kidney. It would basically kill the kidney. And so because of that, he wasn't able to get the replacement. And he told me this story more than once, and it sat with me I think about it so often, especially, if I'm ever, asked to play the role of being a shaliach tzibur during the Yamim Noraim. He said that year when he went up to daven, he always loved the community. He was always very close with them, and they loved him. But that year, he said he started to daven. There was a few, and he had this overwhelming love for the tzibur that fell over him. That was so powerful. He said in this incredible love that you can't really fully describe in words. And it hit his heart, and he davened with all his heart for these people, for his whole tzibur. And afterwards, a couple days later, he went to check his blood count, his white cell blood count, I believe it was, and the numbers were what they needed to be. It was like unusual, almost miraculous in the way that it switched, and all of a sudden he was able to be able to have that replacement. And he said that for years he always tried to recapture that feeling and that love, and he was never able to do it quite the same. But anyone who knows him and knows how he davened, his heart was with the tzibur. And the idea to be a shaliach of the tzibur, there's a concept in halacha as shlucho shel adam kamosa, that the shaliach of a person is like that person. And when we're thinking about Avos Yisrael, when we're thinking about nowadays, when we're thinking about the fact that we don't have the Beis HaMikdash, the kind of love that a shaliach tzibur needs, there's an element of needing everyone who is alive today to an extent to be a shaliach tzibur. We're fighting for the Beis HaMikdash, we're fighting for the Jewish people, and we represent each other. And in order to do that, having that love brings Hashem closer. The Avos Yisrael of the Jewish people is what brings Hashem closer and brings the Makor HaBracha, the source of bracha, and thus bracha into our lives in a much more powerful way. So my message today is simple, it's clean, it's touching, and it's what my uncle taught me, and I think something that we can live in our lives. Do our best to capture the love of the tzibur and represent Klal Yisrael in everything that we do, whether it's davening for them, whether it's fighting on behalf of the Jewish people, in a conversation about representing Israel, something that's all too often needed these days, whether it's making Kiddush Hashem. But if you want to bring the Makor HaBracha, if you want to bring HaKadosh Baruch Hu closer and more blessing and even miracle in life, Hashem is the one who brings miracle. Derech HaTeva, above Teva, whatever it is, Hashem is the one that holds our hands and walks us through life. And the way to bring him close is by loving his creatures, his creations, his children, the Jewish people. Have a good Avos Yisrael, Torah-filled, Tefillah-answered, beautiful, uplifting day.